Eric Chase, any way you see Conrad Murray taking the stand, would it benefit him?
Well, what we defense attorneys say is the scariest thing in the world is putting your client on the stand. And the only thing scarier than that is not putting your client on the stand. This is actually a really tough decision for both Conrad Murray and his attorneys. The case is not going well. The only thing that Dr. Murray has going for him is that he's kind of sympathetic. This might come down to actually a jury nullification situation where Conrad Murray's going to try and get the jury to say, even though you may have done something wrong, you're a good man and we're going to save your life. As a defense attorney, given how this trial's going, there may be no choice but to put him on the stand. Well,
let's face it. Dr. Paul White was not a great closer for the defense after David Walgren got a hold of their mock cross-examinations that he would go through to say to help him and his team decide whether or not he's ready. Is that going on or has been going on?
Absolutely. The only way you can make a decision on whether to put him on the stand is to see how he's going to do. And you do the mock cross-examinations and you see how he's going to respond, how he's going to answer the difficult questions. And of course, in a situation like this, he's going to have to take some hits. And I want to go back to a point I made before about jury nullification and explain that. Jury nullification is when you tell the jury, you know, hey, look, he may have done something wrong. He may have technically broken the law, but you shouldn't convict him anyway. And given the way this case is going and the actual landslide of evidence that's showing that he breached the standard of care and did lots of other things wrong, that may be the only chance he has. If I'm his attorneys, I actually want to put him on the stand.
Wow, okay. Want to hear his side of the story. Eric Chase, you're writing or posting, I hope Murray takes the stand. I want to hear his side of the story. Eric Chase, you're saying, hey, you know, you go with it. You go with Conrad Murray to testify. How do you prepare him, though, for a David Walgren who is so laser-focused and these difficult questions that you wonder, how would Murray answer them? Why didn't you tell anybody at the hospital you gave him propofol? Why didn't you call 911? And so on.
Well, David Walgren is doing a fantastic job. He's doing what I like to call a conversational cross-examination. He's not being accusatory. His voice isn't going up. He's not pointing his finger. He's just chatting with the witnesses. And when he was chatting with Dr. White did not do well. Did not do well for the defense. He did well for himself and that he was being honest. But when he says, absolutely, I would not have done that, and he said it so emphatically. If I'm Dr. Murray sitting in the chair, I'm thinking, I've got to testify. Now, to answer your question as to how he responds to certain things, he's got to, as I've said before, take his lumps. If there are things he did wrong, he has to admit it. He has to take the position, I was doing the best that I could under the circumstances.
Got it.
No one said it's going to be easy. And in fact, I don't think he's going to decide to testify because of how hard it's going to be. What I said was, if I was the attorney, I would probably.
Judges found he has made the decision freely and voluntarily. The defense will rest after exhibits are moved into evidence. So there it is. Conrad Murray will not testify. That was the common wisdom. 10 seconds each. Eric, surprised? Your reaction, real quick.
No, not surprised at all. Even though I might have put him on the stand, I'm not surprised. This was a tough decision, and I think they have set up their closing argument on the narrow issues they wanted.
Michael Barnes, 10 seconds. Told you, as you were one of the few that said he should testify, why? What made you believe this is what he would have had to do, and you might have given him the okay if you were representing him? Okay.
I didn't say I thought he would testify. I said I thought he should testify.
Right.
If that is what Mr. Flanagan said, I certainly agree with him. And again, the reason is this trial is not going well for him. When your own star witness says emphatically, I would not have done what Dr. Murray did. He didn't just say it, but he said it with passion. Your own star witness says with passion, he wouldn't have done what you did in a million years. Then the onus falls to you. It's his life. It's time for him to step up and save himself. That's why I thought he should testify. I actually never thought he would. It's just too scary. The prosecutor was doing too good a job, and he would have had a problem, but what choice does he have?
Yeah. Michael, drug policy advisor. Eric, let me start with you on Dr. Paul White. How disappointed are you, if you're the defense, with the way things ended with your expert Paul White?
Unfortunately, Mike, I have to say I'm very disappointed. I'll make no bones about it. I'm a homer. I'm a defense attorney. I'm pulling for the defense in this case. I want them to do a good job, and I want them to win. If I'm the defense attorney in this case and I saw my star witness say the types of things that Dr. White said, and I don't think that a lot of points were made on the direct examination issues that Mr. Flanagan had brought up, that is, on the propofol drip. What Walgren did is he sidestepped those issues, and he attacked what Michael Barnes has been talking about, which is these 16 other failures on the standard of care. He said, okay, let's assume arguendo you're right. Let's assume there was no propofol drip. He still made a lot of mistakes that led directly to Michael Jackson's death. And the fact that, what really bothered me the most is the fact that Dr. White not only agreed with that proposition, but appeared to agree with it passionately. And if I had hired this guy and he takes a stand, and instead of saying, yeah, you know, you might be right, maybe he did make a mistake, instead what he said was, I absolutely would not have done that.
Right.
If that's my expert witness, I'm very disappointed.
No, yeah, he would never even consider administering propofol to Michael Jackson. That was just huge. Hey, let's go to Ted Rowlands. Guys, just your thoughts on that. Eric, I'll start with you. Just let everybody know. I think he got out of there okay. But I wish they'd have shielded him a little bit. Eric, your thoughts there as we see that unfold?
I'm watching that, and I'm actually astounded. I mean, here's Dr. White. He's been chastised twice. A contempt hearing for making comments that the press overheard, already fined for something he did in his testimony. He referred to something he shouldn't have referred to. What the heck is he doing stopping and standing right in front of that courthouse where all those cameras are? I can't hear what he's saying, but I see his lips moving.
He says he can't comment.
There's open mics. He's got to move past.
Yeah.
He's got to get past that spot where the press is. Why the heck has he stopped there?
I agree with you. Here we're getting this from inside the court. This is from one of our...
...them to the strict standards of California law.
Got it. Okay. Eric Chase, if you're the defense, what are you most concerned about right now as we're getting closer to this jury having the case, obviously closing arguments coming up Thursday?
Well, Michael Barnes is absolutely correct. The defense has a lot to be worried about because Dr. Murray clearly did violate the standard of care. Instead, Mike, let's talk about what the defense's opportunity is here. As I've said all along, Dr. Schaefer made a huge mistake in his testimony as it relates to the setup of the propofol infusion. The one opportunity the defense has here from a factual standpoint, I think they still have some jury nullification chances because Dr. Murray's a good man, but in terms of the factual arguments, the chain of events that the prosecution has set out, they need to attack that one link in the chain that I think they're going to argue is absolutely necessary, and that's that there was a propofol infusion. And if that hanger on that propofol bottle had to be opened by Dr. Schaefer, and there's no evidence that the propofol bottle was inserted into the saline bag because there was no propofol residue in that saline bag, the defense may be able to argue that Dr. Murray did not give a propofol infusion. And hopefully they can be successful in saying, without that, you cannot convict. Now, I think it's correct that without that, they still can convict if they follow the jury instructions to the letter of the law, because there were, quite frankly, so many errors here. And even the idea of giving this operating room medication as a sleep aid, it's got to be offensive to any jurors, just as it was to the defense's star witness, Dr. White.
Yeah, and what you just articulated, Eric, is what the prosecutions wanted all along. Keep it simple. Dr. Murray gave Michael Jackson propofol, a potentially dangerous sedative in a home setting without the proper monitoring equipment. And, Michael, the list goes on because that gets to standard of care. That's what we're going to hear, right, once again, as we get to closing arguments. Standard of care violated 17 times over, egregious violations, thanks to Dr. Arnold Klein. And he was desperate, and he rapid infused the propofol, and that is what killed him. Cause of death is where the defense is going to go, and it was Michael Jackson, not Conrad Murray.
The defense has to be very careful with how vehemently they put Michael Jackson on trial. He's a very beloved figure. And to accuse him of all kinds of horrible things, I think would be a big mistake. Yes, they have to say that he reached for that propofol and gave it to himself either orally or by an injection. What I'm really listening for, Mike, in closing arguments is the prosecution's closing argument. I want to see if they make an arguendo argument, that is, assuming an argument is true. And it goes like this. Will they say, let's assume the defense is correct. Let's assume that Michael Jackson gave himself the propofol. Let's assume that there is some reasonable doubt as to whether there was a propofol infusion. You can still convict Dr. Murray because of all these other mistakes in the standard of care. What I'm listening for, what I think is going to be fascinating to see if they do, is the prosecution going to make that kind of arguendo argument?
Do you think they will? Let's get back to our attorneys, Eric Chase and Michael Barnes. Eric, I'll start with you. What's the feeling right now? All right, both sides rest. You have a day to prepare your closing arguments. What's that mood? What's that mindset with each of these teams?
Well, I think for both the teams, it's going to be very focused. Like any other professionals, they've got a job to do at this point. They're not going to be focusing on the drama. They're not going to be focusing on the what-ofs, what could we have done, what didn't we do. They're going to be focusing on what points do we have to make. What do we have to do? What can we do to win this case? What kind of traps can we set for the other side to draw them into how we want to frame the question? Because again, remember, the arguments here aren't just about winning the question that's asked, it's about determining what question is going to be asked. From the defense side, it's was there a propofol drip? From the prosecution side, it's was there a violation of the standard of care? And it's going to be interesting, and we'll see what happens.
Michael Barnes, how much is at stake here? Administering a dangerous sedative like propofol, people can die. Eric Chase, real quick, how much do you think's at stake? Could this case be won or lost in closing as we get there Thursday?
Well, that's all that's left for the defense. I think this has been a landslide against Dr. Murray. It's up to the defense at this point to frame a salient argument that's going to convince at least one juror that there's reasonable doubt that Dr. Murray's guilty. For them, it comes down entirely to closing argument.
Got it. Okay. Guys, great job today.